A Russian spokesman told reporters that Moscow has taken notes or taken into account President Trump's announcement of a new deadline for Russia to end its war with Ukraine. But they said its special military operation continues. Yesterday, President Trump said he would give Russia 10 to 12 days to end the war rather than the 50 he had given back on July the 14th. What might President Trump do if Russia fails to meet that new deadline? Joining me now to discuss this and more is U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Budget Committee. He joins us by phone. Senator Graham, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for covering this. It's a very important topic. Thank you.
Well, let's start with the president saying, all right, you only have 10 to 12 days now instead of the 50. What actions might the president take? Does this bring in your measure that calls for increased sanctions on Russian oil?
Yes, I think so. There's 2 ways. What is he going to do? He said today on the airplane coming back from England, it was 10 days. So he said 10 days. So the clock is ticking. Now, what would he do? At the end of 10 days, if there's not a ceasefire, he's going to put sanctions on those who buy Russian oil and gas. Putin could care less, apparently, about how many Russians get killed in the battle. You know, hundreds of thousands have been killed and wounded. I don't think he cares about sanctions because he lives pretty well, him and his cronies. So what we're doing, I've talked to President Trump about, is go after the customers. He's a fossil fuel economy, Putin is. So Trump is threatening to go after China, India, Brazil, and other countries that buy Russian gas that prop up Putin's war machine with tariffs 100%. So in other words, China, if they keep buying Russian cheap oil to prop up his war machine, Putin, Trump's going to put a 100% tariff on Chinese products coming into America. And they're going to have to pick between the American economy and helping Putin. I think that's the best way to get Putin to the table.
So these countries that are buying this Russian oil, despite the international pressure not to do so, then the United States will take actions against those secondary countries, secondary sanctions on those countries in what they sell to the United States.
Tariffs, not sanctions. And this EU deal with the European Union is the most fantastic deal I've ever seen an American president negotiate. We're going to put a 15% tariff on European products. Some of them, a lot of them coming in like $100 billion a year. We're going to replace Russian oil and gas in European countries over time. This is a fantastic deal. But what Trump is telling people like China, countries like China and India, who buy cheap Russian oil to benefit their economy, that you're going to pay a price for keeping this war going because without you helping Putin, he wouldn't be able to prosecute the war. This will be a game changer, and it's coming in 10 days. And my bill has Congress allowing, setting this up for him so he can do it through executive action, or he can have Congress pass a bill allowing him to do it. I want to help the president, give him the most leverage possible. I think there'd be 90 votes in the U.S. Senate to allow the president to put tariffs on countries that buy Russian oil that don't help Ukraine from 0 to 500%. Let him pick the number.
Now, these currently, is Russia selling this oil cheaper in order to get it to these?
Oh, dirt cheap. I mean, this is, Tony, that's a good. India is buying oil from Russia and reselling it. Now, Europe last week put a price they will pay on Russian oil at $48 a barrel versus what had been $60. Well, the goal is to stop buying Russian oil and gas, but that's going to take a while. We got to build pipelines and ships and all that stuff. But Russia is selling it well below market because Putin just needs enough money to
and this is what's financing their war machine.
But totally. I mean, Trump, as always, goes for the juggler. Trump has figured out, we've talked about this for about a year, without oil and gas customers, Putin's out of business.
And this doesn't require any military assistance from the United States. This is all economic.
Not one bullet. You're telling India and China You have been profiting off this war. You don't do a thing to help Ukraine.
Right.
You're buying oil from Russia well below market. It's cheap oil, helps your economy, but keeps the war going. You're going to have to make a decision 10 days from now.
Well,
if you keep doing that, you're going to lose access to the American economy.
Well, Senator Lindsey Graham, I'd like to have a conversation at some point about India because they play both sides. Totally,
100%.
They want to have a close relationship with the United States, but they're unwilling to make a commitment to the same values that we embrace. They're playing with China and Russia. I think they're unreliable, but that's another conversation. I only have 5 more minutes, and I want to go to another foreign policy issue.
Okay.
I want to play a clip of Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Zar responding to the international pressure for a ceasefire in Gaza. Play clip 4, please.
The international pressure on Israel during critical days in the negotiations for a ceasefire and hostage deal has already caused Hamas to harden its position. This pressure is directly sabotaging the chances for a ceasefire and hostage deal.
I mean, today, the Prime Minister of the UK coming out saying that if we don't have a ceasefire and Israel doesn't agree to a 2-state solution, we're going to join France in September and vote for a Palestinian state. That's counterproductive, is it not?
Well, I know this is a religious radio show, but it's asked backwards. You should be doing the opposite. I've been telling Israel that if Hamas doesn't agree to lay down their arms and the leaders exit Gaza, go in and do what we did to Berlin and Tokyo, take the place by force. The Europeans are prolonging the war by putting on the table a Palestinian state, makes, as the foreign minister said in Israel, Hamas harder to deal with. So I've talked to the British today. I've talked to the French. You're making it harder to find a ceasefire, not easier. So here's my position to our friends in Israel. Do what you have to do to finish Hamas off if they do not agree to lay down their arms, period.
Does the United States stick with them? I mean, the president, I know he's been very good on Israel, but he seems to be moved by Hamas propaganda coming out of Gaza.
I don't mind having humanitarian corridors to help feed people.
Right.
But we've got Hamas over in a corner now. You're negotiating with the ethnics. That's like asking the, Israelis to negotiate with the religious Nazis, Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
They want to kill all the Jews, and they're religious fanatics. So if you can't convince them to lay down their arms and the leaders go somewhere else, then I think Israel needs to use everything at their disposal to end this war quickly. And I don't mind helping feed people, kids, but the goal is to end the war so there's no future October 7th, and the Palestinian people will never have a better life as long as Hamas is around. We're coming up on 2 years after the most brutal attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Enough already. Finish Hamas off.
All right. I'm going to be joined by Caroline Glick a little bit later in the program. We're going to talk about that. What I think is a pretty bold and pretty aggressive humanitarian effort that they put forth down there. But Hamas has been hijacking and stealing and selling a lot of the humanitarian relief.
Just one last thought. Did anybody suggest we should feed the Germans or the Japanese during World War II?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's what's happened.
Why do we hold the Jewish state to a different standard?
I don't. They're in a fight for their life. Do you agree with us with that? Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, Houthis. They're surrounded by groups, ISIS, Al-Qaeda types, that want to kill all the Israelis. They believe they have to kill the Jews to honor God.
Right.
They're religious fanatics. And when we were in the fight for our lives in World War II, if you had suggested we need to start feeding the Germans or the Japanese as we're fighting their forces, people to run you out of town.
Right. They would have looked at you like you were from outer space.
Like, yes, and we've lost the sense of that this is a war for the survival.
That Hamas started, a war that Hamas started.
They
Israel
started it.
Not Israel.
Yes.
All right, Senator, we're out of time.
Israel withdrew.
Out of time. Always great to talk with you. Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, thanks for joining us.